What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So as y'all know, today is Wednesday, which means the next summit is also live in the Crew 2. For this week, we have the Halloween Pumpkin Rooftop, which I admit actually looks pretty dope. In gold, we have the Combi Ghost Hunt Edition, which is a pretty interesting looking vehicle. For the next summit, though, we're going to have the Dallas Run, getting ourselves a Nitro Chemist boosted for Rally Raid. And if you do not have a Nitro Chemist set for Rally Raid, I would definitely recommend going after this one. We're also then going to have the Molten Core tire, which I would say actually looks pretty dope. I do know that tire is going to be fairly old, so if you did miss it, go after that as well. Then we're also going to have a pretty interesting tint, which I would say is pretty interesting, having 3 different good rewards in one summit there. The next one, though, they are coming, guys, is getting us another chance to get the Ford F-150 from outer space. This is actually, once again, going to be the only dually looking truck in the entire game, and I would actually say it's not going to be a terrible truck either. It does actually handle pretty well. The next one, though, is going to be the Sunshine States, getting us a multicolored smoke for platinum. I would say the rewards in this summit aren't going to be all that great, but I really do enjoy the summits in the game, so I guess why not do it? But jumping into the Demons Unleashed here, we are going to have a nice mix of events. We're going to have 2 Alpha GP, 2 street races, a motocross, and a monster truck event. We're then going to have an escape, a slalom, and a low altitude. So for the escape here, I did end up using the Proto Concept Pulse Performance. I was actually trying to use something like a hypercar on it. I took different routes, and I was like, you know what, man, why am I making this so dang difficult? I did end up jumping back into the Concept Pulse Performance, and boom, I did end up getting 126,000 points in this one. That was definitely not going to be the best run ever. I most likely could go back in and probably get a tad farther on it, but I would probably say 7,200 yards is fairly decent. The next skill, though, is going to be a slalom. So for this, I did end up using a touring car bike, which one of my favorite ones is the Ducati Panigale R. Now, when it does come to these slaloms, though, as long as you actually have a score breaker, you can basically run any class of your liking. You can use a hypercar, street-tiered vehicle, also a touring car. You could probably even run something like a rally raid or even a rally cross in it. But as long as you guys have a score breaker, these are probably going to be fairly simple. And then for the final skill, it is going to be a low altitude. So for this, I did end up running one of my favorite planes, the Zivko Edge 540 V3. Now, you could easily run something like the Harman Rocket. That's also a great plane to use on it. And luckily, this low altitude specifically is going to be very easy to do. Once you actually start, basically head right for the water and follow that until the timer does end up running out. Do watch out for the bridges, though, because they are going to be part of that said river, and you could definitely run into them. But even going over those and actually getting less of a multiplier, still got 156,000 points. Now, the first event here is going to be an Alpha Grand Prix event with the lovely Proto Concept Pulse Performance. Now, again, though, this is probably not going to be the best overall, I guess, Alpha GP car out there, because we all do know the best one out there is most likely going to be the Mark II. This is easily going to be the meta currently in the Crew 2, guys. This thing is incredible. But with that, though, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be using a meta, so I did not use that in any of the events in this summit. I did end up using the Pulse Performance. Like, yeah, my overall time might be a tad lower, but looking at it, though, guys, I'm a 12-second difference from my friend there running the Mark II, and I'm only 5,000 points behind them. The other event down here is also going to be a Grand Prix event, which, again, I ran the exact same vehicle. And the funny part is, even with a few different mess-ups in this event, I still got under a minute and 50 seconds. I would probably say I can easily shave off 2 to 3 more seconds on this one, but I would probably take under 150. It's pretty decent, especially running a different Alpha GP on it. And then for the 2 street races in this, you actually have to use the Challenger SRT Hellcat and the Challenger SRT Demon. Surprisingly, they're actually different cars, which I would say that's going to be fairly obvious because, you know, they kind of are different cars. I admit, though, I actually like the way the Hellcat handles over the Demon, though. In this event, guys, it is going to be over 4 minutes to complete it, and the other event is also going to be fairly long on top of it. I would actually say the Hellcat is going to be a great car, specifically at higher speeds with it. It does actually handle nicely. The overall speed is decent, but with it being an 8-speed, being in manual, I wouldn't say it's probably the best thing out there, but I would probably say the car is fairly usable. The big thing is watching out for the corners, making sure you're in the right gear around them, and do not be afraid to be in one higher gear if you are running manual in the Hellcat. because I did notice it helps coming out of the turns just a tad quicker. And the cool part is though, going out of the corners and being in a higher gear is also going to work in the Demon and the Hellcat. I actually noticed in both events, like for example in the Demon here, you're actually going to have a lot of tighter corners in this event, so you are most likely going to have to be in a higher gear. Sometimes guys, being in a lower gear is definitely going to make you a lot slower in the corners. Now, the reason why I do say that with this event or even the Hellcat event comes down to something I was noticing driving these cars back to back in these events. I was actually noticing when you are using manual that having to shift through 8 gears, you have to find the sweet spot in those said gears when you're going in and out of corners. Sometimes being in a lower gear can actually make the car much slower because you're obviously going to be not accelerating as quick as you probably could be in it. And if you're going to be in a higher gear, guys, I would say it's definitely the better way to do it. Kind of one of the downsides of having an 8-speed transmission in this game. But the next one, though, is going to be a motocross event. Now, I would say this race is probably fairly simple to do. You're probably going to notice the best bike on this is easily the Nighthawk Edition. For me, I did end up running the Red Bull Edition. This bike is still great. I was actually thinking about going back into this event and trying to do a tad better on it. But to be honest, I really don't see the point of going back into it. I got around a minute and 50. Definitely wasn't the best run ever. I know I could be a lot more cleaner on it, but the goal here is not to be a pro. I just want to show you guys it is possible to do great on the events and easily still get into platinum even if you're not going to be the best racer out there. I'm also not going to be no pro, so when I jump in, I try to have a lot of fun on these events, and I feel like that's probably the best way to do it. And you know what? You can still get into platinum running weird vehicles and stuff like that, and also not being all that perfect. The next one, though, is going to be a monster truck mixed into a street race. Now, this is probably going to be a pretty odd event, guys. Now, I would say it's going to be weird on a few ways. For one, you're probably going to notice the scoring on it's only around 60 to maybe 70k or less on it, which is definitely going to be a tad weird. But then again, they probably did this on accident. Most likely wasn't supposed to happen this way, but then again, it's probably going to be down to the fact of which event this actually is. For me, I did end up using the Mustang GT. I love this thing. The other great monster truck you're probably going to notice is easily the Silverado 1500. You really cannot go wrong with either one of those monster trucks. Overall, though, guys, I would say a lot of players will end up enjoying this summit. It is pretty dang fun. I would probably say the motocross event's probably going to frustrate a few, but luckily the motocross bikes in this game are pretty fun to actually use them. I admit I do like them a lot more in this game than Motorfest. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this.